Hello and welcome to Inside Events, an international podcast focused on contemporary issues in events and festivals. This week, I'm joined by Professor Kiki Kaplanidou from the University of Florida, and we're going to be talking about quality of life. Thanks for joining us, Kiki. If you could tell us a little bit about where you're from, what's your role, and why are you interested in quality of life in the context of kind of sports and events.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Mike. This is going to be a fun discussion. I hope this is something I really enjoy to talk about. So I'm Kiki Kaplanidou, as you said. I'm professor at the University of Florida. I've been here now. This is my 17th year, so quite a while. And originally, I'm from Greece, so going through my studies in England, and then I stayed in Canada for a little bit, and now finally in the U.S. as my final base. I hope, you never know. And my research is looking at the impact of sport events on communities. So it started with tourism development, actually, how sport events could change the image of a place, how we can use them to promote destinations, understand the synergy that happens between putting the event together and at the same time, having the destination marketing organizations take advantage of that and come together. And from that point on, I started thinking more of on a bigger scale of how these really impact communities in general. So we bring in these sport events, and then there's, let's say in the United States, for example, there are there's a number of smaller communities, rural at times, we could say, that they often rely on sport events for their entertainment, for their kids' access to their like sport opportunities, competitions, seeing different aspects, volunteering for themselves and for maybe the youth that lives there. So I think that's, I started looking at from that standpoint, how it impacts society in general, sport events, the dynamic that they have to do so. So that's kind of how it all, it came for me, and how it sort of sparked my interest towards the quality of life outcome and variable. I started from the sport event experience, and then I'm looking at how these experiences really impact how people feel about their lives within that host community, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a great intro. And if we think about the kind of concept of quality of life, I can imagine if I'm a kind of first year student, that might not be necessarily a concept that I might hear of like immediately, maybe a bit more complex. Could you break it down for us, just for the listeners, in terms of what you might mean by quality of life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, for all of us, maintaining or improving quality of life and well-being is a universal goal, right? Like across our lives. I think we need to think, I want to have a good life. Nobody says I want to be miserable. So in general, quality of life is a term that includes many domains in persons' lives. That's according to Diener back in 1984. So they talked about quality of life from a person's standpoint, which is more the subjective side of things, how I feel, what are my community connections, what is my spiritual health, what is my financial situation, and all that. And then there's the objective community of life evaluation, which is the community economic indicators, but also, how the person sees services in the community, the business, the government, and all that stuff. So there's the personal quality of life and the community quality of life, if we were to break it down into these sort of bigger domains. In 1995, that was an initial review by Feltz and Perry. They reviewed a number of quality of life definitions and models that kind of focused on the quality of life construct up to that year. And back then they said, well, we're looking with, the physical domain, or well-being, if you want to use that term, health, fitness, physical safety, how we operate in that domain, the material well-being, which has to do with income, our financial status, our social well-being, which is the quality and sort of breadth of the relationships we have, and then our development, skill development and activity that includes work as well in there, and then emotional well-being, which is self-esteem, our moods, the affective states, and all that stuff. You may be familiar with that scholar as well. So Iwasaki, he in 2007, he connected quality of life with leisure quite a bit, and he sort of also said that we need to think about life quality in terms of what constitutes a good life in terms of a social and cultural environment, right? Like where we live, what's happening. So and then there's other terms that enter that picture as well, which is life satisfaction and this happiness, which that connects with the other domains that we talked about. And so he said there's an important connection with what we do in our free time with our overall life. And some of the studies found that a lot of the activities we engage in during that leisure time do have a more significant contribution to how we overall see our quality of life. But if the World Health Organization, for example, defined quality of life as the individual perceptions of their position in life in the context of culture and value systems and in relations to their goals, expectations, standards, and concerns they have. It is a broad concept, according to the World Health Organization, that is affected by the person's physical health, psychological state, level of independence, social relationships, and their relationships to their environment. So you can see the domains you're moving in is sort of similar, right? Like the health, the relationships, the financial aspects, and so on and so forth. And for some reason, I cannot see you. You're blurry a little bit, but
I am really blurry. I'll cut me out now.
Yeah.
But let me just try. I went to pick up a pen, and then it just
Yeah.
made me really, really blurry for some reason. I think for some reason it hasn't got the perspective right. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. You needed
I'm
a
back.
minute.
I'm back. Do you know what? I was just really hoping that it wasn't going to be putting you off. I thought, I was trying to cut.
I was in my own
world. You're just doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll cut that bit. So Kiki, when it comes to the power of events for achieving a higher quality of life for the people that are affected and often disaffected by by events. What is the power of events for achieving that? Would you say?
So, let me start this by saying that sport events is one little bubble in our whole, life, right? It's not that my work environment where I'm staying, 8 hours of the day or 9 or 10, depending on the day you're having. And that can impact quite a bit, I think, my overall, or maybe that domain of my quality of life. So I think the way we need to think about this is sport events connect with our leisure side of the leisure quality of life, that domain that we define as, hey, what do I do in my free time? How many resources or how much, money, resources, time I invest, and then the relationships that come from that. And in the studies that we've done with residents about their perceptions of like bringing big sport events, the World Cup, the Olympics and all that, the things that they assign more importance to about the impact that these have on their quality of life is the social stuff, their relationships, how they connect with people, and the spaces that they find themselves connecting with other people, and spaces that were created by that event for the community, that they stay after the event is done. So that's what I've seen with my research. This seems to be a recurring theme, and almost irrespective of size of the event, which is interesting to me to see that. Obviously, the changes that a sport event brings in a community is, the bigger the event, the more drastic the changes, both from like construction aspect, if you wish, and maybe program implementation and opportunities, to more people training, more jobs, exposure, and all of that. Smaller scale events, they have a different angle in this, but they do provide what I call the sportcation environment for the people who participate. So it's families that travel with their children for youth, and that's a very dominant segment of events in the United States, the youth sport events. They devote time and resources to that sort of time with their kids, but also they develop relationships with other parents, and that becomes for them like a vacation. It's through their children investment in that world. So to me, that's where I see the connection of like what do we do in our free time? I cannot stack free time work financial all the financial and free time spending could connect, or spirituality, for example, or the my physical well-being. If I'm a runner, that could tie as well. What I train, I travel to go there, I participate in the event. There's some physical and emotional aspects of quality of life connections. But so I would say it depends on the event. And yeah, that would be my take on that.
And do you think, I was just having a chat with Vasilios
Yeah,
Zayakis about
yeah,
just the portfolio approach and
yes,
taking a kind of more, each event has its particular goals and it shifts the dial in lots of
yeah,
different ways. And one of those dials will hopefully be improving people's social well-being and
yeah.
quality of life. Do people who kind of run and own portfolios of events in Destiny, do they see quality of life as a really important outcome, or is it still not taken seriously enough? Do you think?
Yeah, that's in my opinion. They don't think of that because it doesn't translate into a money outcome. It's
Mm,
not a.
mm,
It doesn't. I hope maybe we can create a group of people that would show how the leisure activities and sport events being one of them translate into some financial measure of sorts,
mm,
whether people are more productive at their work, or they create they are more creative in other spaces in the community. They maybe connect more and offer more volunteering hours, which they translate to some financial outcome, and so on and so forth. So I think until that is achieved, unfortunately, the so quality of life aspect, it's not at the center of it. I think it should be, but I don't think it is. People think the three steps before that. They say, well, we put these events, we need to achieve bring the people, host the event well, and the local people, they get some exposure to that, and that's all nice and fantastic for the community. But what does that mean for the participants themselves, whether you're a spectator or the actual participant? It's a whole different story. So,
It's
and what
so
it means
true.
for
It's so
local
true.
people, yeah, local people versus non-local people. It's so these are my questions. I have the same questions.
Mm,
I,
mm,
I want to I want to solve some of these problems,
mm,
but
mm.
unless you put a dollar sign to it,
That's true.
people will not pay attention. And
It's so true. Hit them in the pocket, especially in the US. Especially in
yes,
the US,
yeah,
I've definitely seen that way more. Though,
yes,
interestingly, I was having a chat with a guy called Mike Millay who used to run some of the sports commissions, and he was part of Sports
mhm,
ETA, Sports Events Tourism
yep,
Association,
yeah, yeah,
and he was just talking about this kind of need from a shift from a transactional relationship between sports events
mhm,
in destinations to a transformational one, which sounds a bit buzzwordy,
yeah,
he would recognise that sounds a bit
yes,
buzzwordy. But what he was trying to say is that look, sports commissions have tried to get all these big events in bums on seats, bums in beds,
yes,
etc.,
and
but not
yeah.
really cared too much about what they were actually doing for the people that were affected by it.
Mhm.
Do you see there being a bit of a shift like that, Kiki, in the US and maybe beyond?
Yeah, I think, and I having talked to some of the sports city people as well. I have some colleagues friends actually, and acquaintances. They work there, and the discussion that they are trying to push is like, yeah, do not think only of the heads in beds concept. This is one aspect of
Mm,
what is happening in the community, and in fact, I'm yesterday I was meeting with some of our the county manager, and some other officials from the community, and we were saying, there's much more to that. There is sort of you got to think beyond the financial aspect and the benefits that like building a new facility brings to the community.
mm, mm,
Besides, the sport events are coming, but there's other benefits for the locals and tourism. Obviously, that's not, you cannot forget that. It's not like discounted, but kind of go beyond that. So I think if you have a sit on the table and you can push that mindset, it's good. So what we need is more people on the table to do that, like to just get them from what, as your friend said, the transactional aspect to more the, I call it holistic, big picture, what's happening in the community. When change agent, it's change agent theory, like somebody comes in, what is happening at that point in time. So and beyond, to be honest. Yeah.
No, that's really useful. Thanks, Kiki. And I guess we've got a few more minutes left.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just really quickly, in terms of like what the future might look like of this idea and this concept of quality of life, like maybe how might it evolve in the next kind of decade or so?
Yeah, this is interesting because of two things that it came to mind. Obviously, looking at environmental forces that could change your life is the environment, climate change, and climate, all the things we're witnessing and what's happening to Earth, to be honest, and how that will impact people's orientation to how they define their quality of life. And actually, interestingly, I guess the environment is part of the way they see physical spaces, their physical well-being, as part of quality of life. So I see this perhaps in the gamut of domains that quality of life has to become more prominent. And then I'm also intrigued by Gen Z's, the way they view quality of life. Just talking to some and then reading a book about Gen Z, actually, their priorities on mental health. So the mental health benefits they get from a job they will find, or like how they process the world and the help they need to do that, to me, just instinctually, I think it will just add weight to those aspects of how that generation building up to what they think quality of life is. We'll put sort of that on the oh my God, not the background, but foreground. Foreground? Yeah. No, not the background, the opposite. I cannot find the word. It will bring it forward, I guess, as a topic for the quality of life. But I don't think the domains will change. We will always worry about, our social relationships, our financial situation, our emotional well-being, our social, all that. I don't think as the themes will change. I think maybe the weights will change. So what we pay more attention to as we go forward, defining what that is for us, and then the actors that contribute to that. So that's my reaction. I don't know. Really, it's a hard question. Yeah.
It's a really hard question because it's such a big concept that so many things are influencing it and so many people are involved in it. Right? 100%, 100%, talking about the future of it. Well, it's the future of the planet in a way, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, Kiki, we'll leave it there. I asked you to kind of consider some potential resources that might go underneath the video. So I'll drop you a line and we'll add those underneath.
And I have I can send you that Sergi studies and the World Health Organization links. And there's also, we didn't talk about this, but there's also global measures of happiness and quality of life that, how, again, the measurements focus on cost of living, affordable housing, pollution, that's crime rates. This is just what's happening in the communities, right? Objectively, not how people feel, but the objective side of things. So
that'd be interesting to explore, because hopefully we'll have a follow-up chat about and maybe a bit more of a deeper delve into kind of certain aspects of it. But this was a really, really good overview in terms of quality of life, and anyone interested in this concept, that I'm sure they'll have a really good sense of it after listening to this and go through the resources. So thank you so much for coming on Inside Events, and hopefully we'll have you back in the future.
Oh, absolutely. And I will follow up with a few things you asked me. So sounds good.
That's great.
Thank you.